Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I am so excited for you to meet Marika McCandless. She is an award-winning writer, mindfulness coach, and playfulness instigator who helps people really shed their inhibitions and kind of skinny dip in the present moment. She has a book coming out soon called Naked in the Now. It's juicy practices for getting present. And so I'm excited to break down kind of all these masks and kind of ways that we hide from our inner selves and really dive into that vulnerability. So thank you so much, Marijke, for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Daniela.
So just to share a little bit of your background, to be a playfulness instigator, to get to where you are today, what was that journey like for you?
Well, the journey was challenging, as journeys can be. I would say that I came into life with a bit of an optimistic bent, but also a driven. I was very driven. So, always a straight A student and always sort of ambitious for the next thing. And I came to a deep questioning point in my life when my husband had an affair with my best friend.
Oh.
And so
Yeah.
it was such an attention getter. I mean, on the one hand, I knew that there must be something more going on, and I got very curious about it. I began to wonder if maybe I didn't know everything, and if about life itself, about myself, how I was contributing to this. And also, my husband and I decided that instead of separating, we wanted to try to go deeper with each other, to rekindle trust, to rekindle love, to go back to the foundations. So we went to a therapist, but we also went on this year-long love and ecstasy training with Margot and Aunt. And it was there in 1997, so a long time ago, that I first learned the principles of meditation and self-inquiry, acceptance, and the potential for being more authentic and more vulnerable with myself and with my partner. So that really set the ground for it. During that training, what happened for me was I uncovered stuff that I had buried pretty deep. So memories of childhood sexual trauma from a very young age, and diving into the shame of that, because the surfacing of it comes with a lot of feelings of unworthiness, feelings of shame, feelings of you just don't want to expose certain things. It's just too scary. What happened, though, for me, one of the things that happened was my husband completely showed up for me. So we began, and he showed up for his own stuff too, but we began to work this together. And from a couple's point of view, it was incredibly powerful to have somebody sit with me as I was exploring what felt like my deepest shame. So from a couple's point of view, we were able to rekindle our trust. But from my point of view, I began to appreciate how important it was for me to really face these emotions and feelings and that I was experiencing, and the PTSD that came along with it. And I began to understand more of my other behaviors, which had become just like the way you were. And this was normal to be overly sensitive, and why wouldn't everybody be overly sensitive if this type of thing was happening? And
Right.
so it just was a catalyst for beginning the act of questioning what I really knew to be true and what actually brought me happiness versus what I thought was the path to happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wow, what a powerful story. Because I think you're not alone in being uncomfortable with that vulnerability. I think so many of us hide behind these layers of whether it's versions of ourselves, we've created in order to cope and be comfortable. But when we
yeah,
hide behind them for too long, it does prevent us from really being truly available to the people around us, the people we want to be closest to. And I can see where, some people might think, gosh, if my partner cheated on me, I would never get over that. But to really use that as the catalyst to not only strengthen your bond with each other, but your bond with yourself.
totally. That was it exactly. And something you just said there, oh wow, it just flew out of my head. No, it'll come back.
I know that's like the state of things these days, right?
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, to use it not just from a standpoint of something negative, but to really use that kind of diving into ourselves, that kind of letting go of different layers has got to just be so transformative in showing up how you are today.
I remembered what it was now. You mentioned our coping mechanisms, and I there was a point when I had to really actually completely honor that small child for the coping mechanisms that she had come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it wasn't appropriate for me to have developed coping mechanisms that worked so well to help me grow and become successful in many other ways. It's only that there comes a time when you get to investigate whether your coping mechanisms are still helping you or whether they're hurting you. And especially as we become grown-ups, some of the coping mechanisms that we developed as a small child are no longer what will help us grow as an adult.
Yeah. And I love the way you point out that distinction of what you did to cope at the moment
Yeah.
was totally, what you needed. But
Yeah.
if it serves you later on in life or not is something I think we forget to re-examine. We think coped with, overdone, not realizing that when we have that space and that distance and that maturity, we
Yeah.
can still revisit those things
Yes.
and should still revisit them if
Yeah.
need be, if that coping skill isn't serving us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about kind of, to use your words, the power of going on an inner striptease to really uncover who you are beneath your thoughts and ideas, how do you help someone do that? Because that's got to be incredibly scary.
I think, well, first of all, when we first start thinking about exposing ourselves, I think our mind tends to jump to, I'm not going to quote unquote get naked on a stage full of people in public.
Mm-hmm.
And, or even with my best friend or something, it's, but there's a, there's a piece of willingness to just do it with our own self, to
Mm-hmm.
just be safe enough within our own self to befriend the parts of ourselves that feel shame or
Mm-hmm.
feel unworthiness, to just look at it, to be willing to look at it. So that's not very helpful what I've said, but the way that I like to approach it is with very tiny practices, little tiny practices that teach us. I talk about this sometimes, that we can develop a self-inquiry practice that helps us get back into our body. That's one
Mm-hmm.
tier. Another one that sort of invites us to question our mind, our beliefs, our thoughts, our assumptions. And the other one is to investigate, you might call it spiritual, but really more the nature of being, which we maybe probably haven't investigated because it feels pretty obvious that we're, this brain tied to this body.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say there's three questions that to stimulate this kind of personal inward journey, which I call an inner striptease.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is just to practice getting back into the body. And the question is, what else is here? And when I ask myself that question, I mean, what else is here other than my thoughts? Because quite often our thoughts are our entire reality in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so asking what else is here is a simple question to spend a moment tuning into your senses, because the senses only exist in this moment. What we smell or hear or taste or touch, we can have memories of them, but the actual experience of, the coldness of this hand because this room is a little bit cold, that only exists right now. And so we have this opportunity for what I call a tiny little moment of delight.
Mm-hmm.
And, it can be when you allow your eye to alight on a flower, and you just for one instant, a nanosecond, take in with awe, just
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of that flower. It's
Yes.
easier to do it with the whole entire sunset, but you can do it with, little
No.
tiny things
They
too.
talk about, I'm reading a book right now about the power of awe, as well as I've read a lot about the power of savoring moments, not just noticing, but like you said, taking those senses in. And I love that you talk about doing it in a microwave, because it does make it so much more manageable.
Yeah. People, well, okay, I'll finish my
Yeah.
other train of thought. So
Sorry.
that was the first question for getting into the body. The self-inquiry question to trigger examining our mind and how it might be shaping our reality is to ask the question, is that so? So this is a question that's part of a lot of spiritual traditions, and there's, beautiful, wonderful teachers out there that really use this as a tool. Byron Katie comes to mind. Anyway, but for me, the question, is that so? And it can be you don't have to do it publicly. You can
Mm-hmm.
just go inside yourself and ask yourself, is that so? And you can prod yourself to really examine any assumption. Do I really know that that's so? Because your first response is going to be, yeah, he's a jerk or whatever,
Right.
But when you prod yourself a little deeper, sometimes there's an opening where you get to well, I'm not really sure. And it's powerful because you have a moment to consider who you would be if you didn't have that thought,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the assumption is. So I've been speaking a lot lately, and I use this one example because I find it to be really powerful. This is not so much about my judgments of others or even my judgments of, well, yeah, but my own experience of stretching my limits as to what I believed I was capable of. And it has to do with taking up rock climbing in my mid-50s.
That's a great, yeah. I mean, you're stretching yourself physically and emotionally, and they are so connected.
Exactly. And I used to be, I was in my mid-50s, so I had all the thoughts, I'm too old to do this, I'm too weak to do this, and I'm really desperately afraid of heights. So no, I'm not going to rock climb. Thank you very much. But at the time when my daughter invited me to try, and this was on ropes, so it's actually safe because you can only fall a small amount. I had also begun introducing that question, is that so, into my life when I came up against a hard no. And so I said, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe I can rock climb. I don't think I can, but who knows? And it was such an empowering moment because I totally completely lost it on the wall. I cried on the wall. My thoughts were screaming in my head that I'm too weak, I'm too old, I'm too scared, I can't do this. But also the question, is that so? And then I would think, well, maybe I can get another handhold. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew I couldn't fall. It was a psychological fear. It was
Yeah,
really a psychological fear. So getting to the top of that wall was incredibly empowering.
that's
And I
amazing.
still rock climb now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm so excited for the third question, because if you've been listening, you definitely want to rewind and listen to this whole part, take some notes, do some introspective and journaling. It's like a little master class. So I'm so excited for that third piece then.
The third question has to really do with investigating the nature of your being.
Mhm.
And the question is, what am I really?
Yeah.
And the little tiny practice, if your listeners would like to try a little tiny practice, is to close your eyes. This needn't take more than 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Close your eyes and really examine, where does my body start and end? And am I able to discern, without the visual cues that are telling me where my body starts and ends, where my body starts and ends? And you can just investigate on your own. It's like a little mini science experiment. You can begin to ask yourself questions like, is there like an aura or something? That is there something, do I extend beyond my body or
Mhm.
not, And it's just, and there's no right or wrong answers. That's the
Right.
thing about self-inquiry. You're not going to have to be convinced of anything. It's just your own exploration. What am I?
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
do I start and where do I end?
And I love with all these, and you started with this principle of you're befriending yourself, and I love that part of it, because I think so many times we are more open and accepting and kinder to a friend than we are to ourselves. And if we don't take that same care with ourselves as we would with somebody else, that's where those judgments, that guilt, the limiting beliefs of all those, like you said, I'm too old, it's too hard. That's
Yeah.
where all of those things come in and can really be those roadblocks towards moving forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. So, as a playfulness instigator, a lot of times people think this is all quiet and serene, but I gotta ask. There sounds like there's an element of fun to all this too.
Well, there is. And I think so. I have two ways of trying to describe this. So what I truly believe in is that what people really want in life is to be present for it. And
Hmm.
we put a lot of things in place to try to get present in a future date when all of our ducks are lined up. you
Right,
know,
because that never
then,
happens.
right, because that ever happens, right? So what I began to notice was that when I was truly present in a moment, this is a little bit of an unpopular or untalked about. I actually had less self-absorption.
Hmm.
There was like there was an uncovering of all of the protective ideas of who I thought I was, and just an opening to whatever was here right now. So if you're in a good and healthy sexual relationship with somebody, I think about how when we're present, we're like lovers. We are naked. We're
Hmm.
just kind of playfully exploring our senses, our environment, each other. We tend to be, especially if you think of those moments when you're really just getting to know somebody almost, where you're open and willing for them to be whoever they are in that
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah.
But there's another way of looking at it too, if you don't tend to go that direction, and that's just how we are when we play or when a child plays. There's also a component of it's like a component of delight. It's we don't have to be what we think we are. We can just have that experience of delight and playfulness moving us along. And what I have found in my own life is that whenever I look at a situation and wonder where the playfulness is in it,
Hmm.
it instantaneously becomes less onerous. Okay, so everybody's heard I have had some heavy stuff in my life, a little bit. And, if you're in the middle of a PTSD episode, it's not probably going to feel very playful. So you don't have to practice when you're in the middle of a
Right.
PTSD moment, but you can practice when you're going on a walk, and you can just notice when a moment feels a little bit more playful.
Hmm.
And so for instance, just this morning I was sitting there and my eyes were caught by a hummingbird who, and just there's like this little tiny brightening that happens inside
Yeah.
yourself. And it's almost like this smile that can't help but escape. I think of that as like a nudge of playfulness. And you can do that in your interactions with people too. Where is the nudge of playfulness that I could add here? And hint, it's not teasing. Teasing is it might be, but teasing can be dangerous. It's a little bit more innocent than that.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it just, like you said before, comes from that place of awe, comes from joy, comes from those mindful moments of noticing a sense in a certain way, whether it's something you see, something you smell, something you hear, and just kind of holding on to that for a second from that kind of place of wonder that like you said, a child would have when it comes to almost mundane things. I'm in Buffalo right now and it's snowing, as it typically does up here. And a lot of times we go outside and we're like, oh, this is miserable. I have to drive in it. We're bundled up. And I can remember, my own kids would be like so excited, like they're going to go catch 100 million on their tongues. And they see that snow, that same event in such a different way that it did help me take that step back and to be able to do it without someone prompting you as part of the journey and the practice, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So your book, Naked in the Now, is a juicy practice for getting present. Does that encapsulate then a lot of what we've just talked about?
Yes, it does. There's 30 practices in the book. So
wow. Okay. So we just kind of touched the surface of that.
We just touched the surface of it. Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, this is my advanced reader copy. I know this is a podcast, so people can't see this, but anyway.
But it's going to be available. It's for pre-order right now. Is it on
Amazon?
Available.
It is available for pre-order right now. I'm super excited because I was just endorsed by Kirkus Reviews. If you know
congrats. That's awesome.
Reviews. I know, it's really great. They really got it. So I was pleased. So happy to share it.
And then you also have a free Right Now Mind to experience the power of words to connect and heal us. What is that, and how can my listeners get access to that?
Oh, yeah. So if anybody goes to my website, which is just my name, Marika McCandless. It's hard to spell, but I'm assuming
the link. The link will be live in the show notes below.
Yeah, right. You can go to my website, and if you go to, I think it's under offerings. I just changed my website. You'll find a Right Now Mind link, and I tend to offer it every other month. It was something that I developed actually during COVID. It's a virtual online writing practice, but what I discovered is that it created this profound community of folks who were authentic with each other. One of the brilliant parts of it is that you write for 10 minutes per week to a prompt on your own time. Whenever you have 10 minutes, you go in and you write to a prompt. And the commitment is that you will offer support and encouragement to one other person who has written for 10 minutes. And it's all anonymous, which has been fascinating because this tendency for us to label or think we know something about somebody when we see them or whatever, even if we know their name, can be a barrier to interacting authentically. So when you're just, and everybody knows that when you write for 10 minutes and we aren't worrying about grammar or punctuation or eloquence or whatever, you have to listen for what this person is trying to express. And what you discover is the common humanity that we all have. So it's very powerful practice. So you can find that. Also, if you subscribe to my website, you will immediately get dumped onto a page that I offer for free, eventually, all of my juicy practices that are in my book as guided practices, but I haven't got them all up yet, but there's 6 of them or something. So you can have access to try out some of these little guided practices.
I love that. Thank you so much. And like she said, the link for that and your social media will be live in the show notes below. So definitely connect with Marika, get yourself on the wait list for that book. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Daniela. That was lovely.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.